Hi, I'm Hannah Brown, and welcome to Better Tomorrow. My absolute favorite thing to do is have a heart-to-heart talk with my new friends and my best friends, where we sit down and talk about all the things like relationships and love, faith, and self-care. And of course, the little things as well, like the struggle to figure out what to eat tonight. All in all, I really want to ask, how am I better today than yesterday? And bring artists, entrepreneurs, and friends along on the journey. So join me on the journey, will you? I am so excited that Kate Valor is in the house.
Yay! I'm really looking forward to this.
I feel like you've made it your mission to make everybody feel like it's okay to just be as they are and be a human being. And you don't always have to be better tomorrow, but we still, like I said, I have to try, but we can just be.
Oh, I'm with you in that. Absolutely.
But I'm really trying to be optimistic that it's going to be better.
Yeah.
And if it's not, it's not. I always say when I'm talking about like better tomorrow, I use it as like, I'm sorry right now. I'll try to be better tomorrow. It's not a guarantee, but but we like to have conversations that will at least help us on the way. And I feel like just everything that I've read of yours that has inspired me about you does help me get through the days that aren't so great. And I'm just glad that we get to have this conversation because I know me saying you're such an inspiration for your strength and courage. You're like, what? Because I know your whole thing because you're just human. And I'm sure you have things that maybe you weren't as courageous and there is fear, but the way that you have gone through everything that you've gone through that we'll get into and simultaneously, been able to share that with other people through your books. And guys, if you haven't read them, we're just going to go ahead and make sure I say it right. You wrote 2 books while you were battling what you thought was an incurable cancer, colon cancer, stage 4, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You wrote 2 books for other people called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved and No Cure for Being Human and Other Truths I Need to Hear. I never noticed that the little parentheses. I love a good how they went together. Yeah. I love that. Okay. And I found you through your first book and you talking to everybody about that. But now in that moment, you thought you had incurable cancer, but now you're here cancer free. So how does that all feel?
What's going on there? Yeah, really. Well, cause it's been, it is so, the roller coaster of life is sort of just never lets you off. Mm-hmm. And I started writing mostly entirely because I got a stage 4 cancer diagnosis in September and I thought I was going to die by June. And I thought, I guess it's time to put all my cards on the table. What do I really believe? Didn't I sort of hope that life was going to be easier than this? Mm-hmm. Aren't I actually kind of angry, honestly, at God? Because I was pretty, I know you're not supposed to be I was really great, but I was pretty great. You're just had I participated in, terrible crimes against humanity, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
And I was I thought I did what I was supposed to do. And then life hands me this. So for the first year, and really so much of the time about being sick is just you being bored in hospitals. You think it's going to be some existential fight against a Rocky montage. And it's instead filling out paperwork or sitting in waiting rooms. So I wrote that book, Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved, because it was the sweetness of the lies that I was trying to really think through. And if I could reckon with my life more honestly, then maybe I could learn how to live like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of what the writing became was, how do I learn to live like this, whatever this happens to be? And for the first 2 years, it was just high drama surgeries all the time. And then it became the more boring parts about being sick where people don't know you're sick and your hair grows back. Then they go, you look so great. And you're like, thanks, my life is horrible. Quietly.
Yes.
and then eventually I was like kind of doing okay.
Yeah.
And in all of it, I guess what I've been trying to practice is how do I learn how to speak more honestly about the life that I'm really living, and how maybe do I have any tools to help other people do that too?
And that's what I find so refreshing, because there's like this self-help or like Christian book culture that everything's always like somebody will tell a story of a hard time, but there is always this like beautiful bow at the end. Totally. That's not really how life is. And that's when I kind of discovered your writing. It was like, yes, I know that I'm getting better through all this. Like life is teaching me something, but I really didn't want to be taught this lesson. So
you said it perfectly.
This was not this was not a course I signed up for that I was interested in.
Exactly. So, this is entirely, yes, we are of the same heart and mind.
Like there's been a lot of things that I'm like, when people ask like, would you go back and change your, like the regret, like, do you regret anything? I'm like, yeah, there are some things I would probably go back, and I don't even want to go back to that place. But yeah, I don't know if I loved everything that happened. Yes, there were so many great, like, that's our culture. It makes us do that.
And the reason why we can't even just like say it. I mean, and I just love that you just said, oh no, I definitely have regrets, which people hate. The only correct response is, but it made me who I am today.
Yes.
And that's apparently supposed to stick the landing on, I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah.
But I do think that we've got these, and I think the language that really helps me is I realize that so much of the difficulty about being honest is that we have really tight cultural scripts about what we're supposed to say, women in particular. And the sort of last notes of that song always have to be gratitude, no matter what. I learned everything, no matter what. I could never possibly go back, no matter what. And that nothing is wasted. Everything is always leading to something. And I think trying to say the two things at the same time feels almost impossible. That one, that we almost always find something kind of precious, like this little glittering gem in the rubble of the crap of our lives. And also most of it might be useless, or we wish we could skip. And I would love it if that were kind of more culturally acceptable to say.
I was thinking about that and wanted to ask you what you thought about, I feel like sometimes when you see people be really honest about how they are, you get people, first of all, look at you like you're crazy in person, or if you do it on social media, it's like, okay, we know you went through something bad. Can you get over it now and start posting pictures of sunsets? I feel that way. Sometimes I'll talk about like, I've definitely been on a journey with my mental health, and I'll have people be like, okay, we get it. Can you and why are we like that? I guess just like, why as a culture are we like that? Because I can also see there's maybe sometimes I've internalized that for other people, even though I'm obviously I've been on the other side. That kind of sucks. And it's like, oh, so I can't be that honest. You really just like when I post cute pictures of me and my boyfriend, or now my fiance, and my dog. And that's what you like. Totally. But not actually.
Totally. My real self. Yeah. And also an unfinished problem because someone out there is like, TikTok.
Yeah.
I think there's certain kinds of problems that we have an especially low tolerance for. Illnesses we can't see. So that includes all mental illness. Anything where you're not like we have a prop cast on, like at a neck brace. You're like, oh, it might not be that bad. Emotional pain. And that goes for like the breakups and sadness of all kinds. The loss of friends. It could be acute grief. It could be moving somewhere and missing people and feeling lonely. I mean, any emotional pain we can't see. And I think especially problems we can't immediately imagine the end of. So anything that's because this is partly why I started saying to myself, because I had chronic cancer and it was like for years and years and years. And they'd be like, how are you? And I'm like, still have cancer. I feel kind of like embarrassed saying it, where I'm like, it's
still there.
Sorry that's boring because you already have that information. But I started saying like life is a chronic condition, and we're all in the middle of something, and it's much harder to explain being in the middle than it is to sort of when we always want to be at the beginning or the end.
I'm going to ask you about the before and after. I think the middle is where all the mess happens and where it kind of sucks. But there are some gems.
Yes.
And those make it all worth it. I just love that you talk about that, because I'm like, it gives me the freedom.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other people to be like, this freaking sucks.
Totally.
And I'm tired of just being grateful.
We are full of people selling a cure. And I think it's really, I mean, like gratitude, for example, when I was in the thick of the hardest part of not being sure if every choice I was making was a life or death choice. This surgery, that surgery, will I die on the table? Will I just dramatic, awful things all the time? I kept a big whiteboard over my fireplace, and I would write every lovely tiny bit of grace that I had been given. A kind nurse, like gummy worms from the, waiting room. Every little thing that I needed to add up to something beautiful. And those moments have been gifts. Being able to recognize the lovely things that are in our life is a way that the present gets given back to us, even when the future is absolutely terrifying. On the other hand, those are strategies. They're not solutions to the problem of being a person. And if there were a cure for all of this, for despair and grief and ultimately death, we would have found it by now. So it's just us. It's just us mucking around. But this hyper positive thinking culture is mostly, honestly, because the health and wellness industry is a $12 billion a year industry. And they wouldn't be selling it to us if they didn't want us to buy it. So when we stop buying things, I think we'll feel a little less like we're one facial cleanse and juicing recipe away from.
But I think there's like this piece that can come over you when it's like, there really is no cure for life happening to me. And sometimes it just happens and I didn't manifest it.
No.
It just happens. The good and the bad.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. And like most of what will define our life happens to us, not through us, not just to us. And it's us learning to respond with love and compassion and whatever grace we can find that then defines our character. So, but that's different than to say, well, we can only control our response and therefore like we have all the power. We actually have very little power, but what little power we have is it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It really is. There's one thing that I heard you say about what gratitude is for you. It's like something you said, like it's the glue that sticks all the good things together. Is something I might have butchered that, but I love that because it's just reminding like, oh, today I woke up and I had my tea was really great.
Yeah.
That's it. Like or the person at the counter selling makeup was really nice. And hold on to those things when life sucks, but that doesn't cure anything.
Yeah.
It just makes it a little bit more bearable. Is that why I do gratitude in some way? Or do you even
I
say
do.
You do?
Yeah. I guess I just think of it like it's small math. It's like small, good math. And like it really does add up to something. And I mean, if a day was like a bad day and it was, 8 hours of chemo and it was health bills I couldn't afford. And if you add all that stuff up, the math of what's hard those are big numbers. So I needed something in the other column. And it turns out that it's it's always the same thing.
Mhm.
It's beauty. It's people being hilarious. It's the nurse I had that used to let me pretend that he was a vampire and that when I left that he used my blood for his own purposes. And I thought it was so funny.
That's awesome.
And he would like really creepily stroke my vein when he would take the blood draw.
He like really went for it.
Yeah, he did. And he was like, he always made it seem like he was like glad when I left the room because he just wanted his alone time. And like, that made my whole day.
Yeah.
So it's just the same thing. It's just jokes and delicious food and people who love you.
Yeah. Love.
Just putting it together.
Yeah.
But we're all just putting it together. I mean, anyone who thinks that they've got it mapped out is just honestly having a moment, a wonderful season of luck. And when people are in that season, I want to be like, bless you. There are these seasons where we get it, like wind in our sails.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone was in that moment, they should not feel bad. Like it is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But when it ends, I don't want that same person to then wonder what it was about them that caused them to crash. It's just being a person.
Mm-hmm. You have now all this insight, but what were you like before the diagnosis? Like what did you spend your time doing? What did you think your purpose was? Is it the same as it is now? Like, obviously a lot changed and was not in the plan, but what was the plan?
The plan was nerddom forever. My dad's a historian. My mom's a music professor. All I ever wanted to do. Like we have so many books in my family home that there's just like those sad, unsanitary bathroom libraries where you're like, someone needs to do something. This is no longer safe for us. I love books. I just wanted to be a professor. And so I was really ambitious about it. I was going to do everything right. And I was happy to suffer for it because I thought you just put in your time and it's all adding up. And then someday I was going to have like a office with a turret and gargoyles and all these grateful graduate students who thought I was amazing. And, and then some of it started happening. I got my dream job. Like I married my high school sweetheart. I was crushing it on my Instagram life.
Yes.
and then I was, like the first person in your friend group where the bad thing happens and you're just, I couldn't believe it was me. I couldn't believe that I was like 35. I had a brand new baby and I was like, oh no, okay. So I die at 35. And that the thought of it just exploded my sense of self. Because I thought, and this was untrue, but I thought, wasn't I working my way into something special? Wasn't I special somehow? And that, giving up being special was just awful. Being as special as everybody else is the friggin' worst.
I know. I still try to tell. I'm like, I am special. I am. But then I'm like, I still think I still want to believe that. Do you still believe that about yourself?
It did something. It did something, and part of it is good, and part of it was bad. The bad part was I was treated so badly in the diagnosis process where it was. I mean, by the time I made anybody pay attention to my symptoms, it was already stage 4. Because they didn't.
So you knew there was stuff going on.
Yeah. And I
was it like your stomach pains?
Yeah.
Okay.
I begged, I pleaded. But the only reason I ended up getting the scan that showed my cancer was that I screamed at a human man in a doctor's office.
Yeah.
Which felt very not Canadian. And
you're from Canada. You're supposed to be just super.
I was so compliant.
Nice and
I was like, hey guys, I'm in debilitating pain. Yeah. But I think by the time I found out what exactly was wrong, I really did feel worthless. So when it was so bad, it like confirmed something in me that shouldn't have been confirmed, which was that I was disposable. And that feeling is something I saw in other people who like walked a hard road. And that bit is like, it's hard to undo. That bit needs everybody to be like, no, you really are. The
Mhm.
world would be so different without you. You are a delight and a gift. You know, like that part was wrong. And that's taken a bit. But the part that was right was that I was humbled. I thought I was like climbing a ladder to somewhere.
Mhm.
And then it turns out I wasn't.
Yeah. Or God just took the ladder and was like, nope.
Oh, no rungs.
Yeah.
Cool. How do ladders work then?
Yeah.
So trying to give up on believing that I am special, that I'm an exception to the rule, that life happens to all of us.
Mhm.
That changed my life.
Yeah. And you're still.
I don't love it.
But then was there
I'm
a
in
part
it.
of you, and maybe this is not the right question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I kind of hate doing this, but this is a way that I guess I try to empathize, and the world tries to do it. Be like, I understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. But I think I was so young when I had like these intense stomach pains. And I remember it was same. That's what so sucks about like the medical everything in America is like, it takes so long for somebody to actually believe you. But my mom, I think, yelled at someone and finally got everything to find out like, yeah, I had a malignant tumor and I needed care immediately. And but then I guess then I did feel special because I was lucky, or I survived, or I didn't have to go through chemotherapy. And I really hate when people are like, oh my gosh, you had childhood cancer. I'm like, no, because I don't want to be I didn't go through all the pain I could have gone through. It was really scary. And my parents had to talk to the oncologist that was like, yeah, your daughter has a tumor on her pancreas that is filled with malignant cells. And we don't know if we can get it out. Like that sucked. I was sick. But then I'm fine. Now I quotes. You survived the uncurable.
Yeah.
Is there something in you that feels like, oh, maybe all the great stuff I did saved me? Because we're in that I think that kind of gets to the prosperity gospel of like, just like our life of like, if I've done all these good things, I might go through this bad thing, but I'm going to survive. But then on the backside of that, I know people that were also really good people, also other children that were around me that their cancer got worse and they died. Yeah. And so there's like this thing that I think we're all trying to balance of like, want to hold on to, yes, I'm special, and yes, something that I did matters, and the way that I talk and about myself and other people, and the way that I pray and the way that I serve the Lord all adds up to something. But then when you do that, you discount the people or the alternative that could have been my life. That how now do you look at that?
When I was in my 20s, I spent most of it interviewing people who were trying to preach the solution to illness, to poverty, to family alienation. They, the prosperity gospel, the idea that God wants to make you healthy, wealthy, and happy, and which is the dominant spiritual theology of about 60% of churches over 10,000. So of the biggest churches, it's the most popular thing that you're going to hear. And I spent most of my 20s ruining family vacations, traveling around with a little clipboard, interviewing the preacher and interviewing people in the pews. I spent, I guess, so much time with people who were saying the right prayers, who'd spent a lot of money, who traveled long distances, who were extremely, in my opinion, like very spiritually brave people to even ask for cures for things that felt impossible. And I mean, I sat with people in wheelchairs, desperate to walk again, with parents who just lost their kids at funerals, at prosperity gospel funerals, which are, in my opinion, the saddest ritual in the world, is having to grieve something that they had just 1 second before said was impossible. And so I feel like I just have all of those stories in me about people who did all the right things. And so when I did all the right things and it still happened to me, and now I'm doing really, really well, I guess what I try to hold in that thing is that one little space, is that thin space between the idea that everything is possible, which is prosperity gospel or health and wellness or everybody's recent cousin with an essential oil program that we're so happy for. And then the other side that we also can't do, which is that nothing is possible. And that is the place of despair and the place where we then don't know what our actions are for. And then we wouldn't even know how to try anyway. And I think that space between is something more like, what is possible today? And that is a good place. That is a place of, the words that I love are limited agency. If agency is what we can do, we have limited agency. But we still, but in there is still possibility.
Yes.
And anyone who's like committed to some kind of fitness program knows like these tiny incremental things can become something amazing. But trying to sort of, I think trying to land all of our hopes on such a small runway is hard. And I think we end up getting kind of stuck between a lot. I'm constantly in the everything is possible. I'm like a New Year's nightmare. I have like 20 new resolutions. I'm like constantly obsessed with my own perfectibility. And then I'll pitch back into like, well, I guess nothing is possible. So
I'm that. I am that. Do you think it's God's desire to bless us? Or like, what is God's desire for our life? Because I think that is in that in between. But what is it that he's wanting for us and from us?
Yeah. Yeah. And blessed is such a perfect word because it gets so loaded in our culture with like Instagram hashtag blessed. There can be the version where we've kind of shellacked it with so much shine that we can't actually then say like, what are we really asking? What is God asking from us? And what are we even trying to do with our lives? And I feel like the blessing language is so helpful for me because it lets us try to practice answering that question. Like, so what does God want from us and what should we do with our lives? Well, I mean, so much of what we've been talking about is like practicing cultural and spiritual honesty. So I think honesty is a start. What then in our limitation are we then pulled into doing? I do think that we're called to love and serve, like, and most of it will be very boring, but like our awareness shouldn't be the final goal. Is I just laugh because so much of the stuff that I read in self-help books is just trying to make me more and more aware of myself, but it doesn't do like the next chapter, which is like, well, great, cool, with all this awareness, then like, what am I for? We're for love. We're for like being in a web of love with other people and carrying the weight of their dumb lives too. So it's not just my dumb life. So it's so funny, but like all of this is trying to pull us into changing us. And most of it I think will be because other people need us too.
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of in that, to admit, I think I never was aware, and now I'm like fully aware of everything. And I don't like I'm very self-aware of the things, and I'm not trying to wear that as a badge of honor. It's like now that I'm aware, how do I now believe? Where do I go? Yeah. What do I do with this mess? And to really be able to say, now that I know all the things I know about myself and have accepted that, to feel like God still is like, oh, but this is all that I want you to use now. There's like that part of awareness is important. But like you said, it's like, now that I know all this, how can I use my unique
Yeah.
crap
Yeah.
to actually help in some way.
I mean, there's a perfect theological word for that exact experience. And I like it when I think about limited agency, that we can change a little bit, but if we really want to, but also just what you're describing, which is that like, but we are made to be changed. Like the transformation is also like little blobby worm to butterfly. Like we're also on this earth to become more.
Mm-hmm.
And like the word is sanctification, is like, it's the refining, making, transforming, we're supposed to be kind of made more beautiful in love.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be sanctified. Like it sounds a lot more boring than I'm hoping it's going to be. Because like I want to be like lovely
Mm-hmm.
in how I know how to be useful to other people in this life. But
I also want to get to the place where I feel like I know I'm not lovely yet, but I'm still worth a person that I can still reach my hand down and I can't save someone, but I can bring them on a journey too, or be there for theirs. And I don't have to be any other way than just me. That's hard for me to get to. Just
that's good, huh?
Believing, yes, I want to be sanctified, I guess. Was that how you say that? But I'm not fully there yet.
No.
But
I don't think we get anywhere. I think we just keep doing.
Is this just it?
Yeah. I think we get there. Weirdly, because there are a bunch of religious groups that I studied where they're called perfectionists and they're like, done. And I was like, oh, that must be nice. Tell me how that goes.
You've studied a lot about religion. You grew up religious, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Right? Christian?
Yeah.
Is there anything that while you were studying, searching, that you were taught to believe is true that you found maybe wasn't? And how did you not freak out? I'm hoping that's no, but
that's so great. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, and I really like it.
Not that so way. Funny. Not.
Yeah. No, because I grew up in a funny. Sorry to this particular religious group, but I grew up in a pretty weird religious group called Mennonites, and they're constantly making furniture and baking things.
What's the difference between being Amish and Mennonite?
They're like theological cousins.
Okay,
it's kind of
so it's like a Baptist and Methodist person. Are they theological? Like they're actually totally different.
Well, these ones both have a reluctance to embrace the modern world.
Okay,
and but still mostly do. And it's kind of like being part of a tribe because it's like we would say ethno-religious group, but it's like an ethnic group and a religious group. So they've got like a language and their own food and their own jokes. And I like it.
Yeah,
I do. So I grew up in a religious world that had a bubble, and the bubble was it was fun in there. It was seamless. So
nice to live in a bubble.
The bubble was great.
Safe.
It was. And that has like it has like a familiarity to it. I love those communities so much. And I feel really grateful that I got to grow up inside that feeling of people who know each other's stories. But the thing that I guess I have changed the most in is maybe because I became a scholar of religion is I'm constantly in other people's bubbles, watching them do things that are almost not always very familiar to me.
And they're always weird.
And there's so much weirdness.
They're always weird.
Oh man, every group is so weird.
Yeah.
My group included, but every group is weird. And I think that's made me realize that every group has some stuff I really wish we could skip. And they almost always have one sort of superpower.
I was going to ask you if there was like a group that you studied that you were like, you ever felt like, oh, they have it more figured out than everyone else? Or does everybody just kind of have their stuff?
Well,
you're like, no, it's
so weird. I mean, I'm just thinking, I really like different, like for example, if my life is genuinely going like fully off the rails,
Mhm.
I can't go to a very proper church because I will get a very proper prayer. And I'm not interested in a very proper
Mhm.
prayer at that moment. You don't understand how bad my life is. So I like going to the ones who go for gold, where they're just so certain kinds of Pentecostals, for example, they're like, who knows what can happen? I was like, great.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. So that religious tradition I love for prayer. Other ones are way better if you say like need a meal plan and your family wants lasagna for 2 years. Then you should join a Methodist
say
or
a Baptist.
Presbyterian. Baptists are great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love. Or my Muslim friends are super good at the regularity of their prayer and they're like on it, done. I'm like, oh, you really are praying for me. This is great. So I think the gift has been in learning to be outside my own bubble and kind of being able to borrow from bits.
Isn't that, it's scary. But I also think, and I want to know what your thoughts on this are. I have a lot of friends, especially like in LA, would say like, all different religions we're all pointing the same direction, just on a different boat. Do you think that's true?
No,
I
don't.
Right?
No,
it's not.
No. And it's partly,
it sounds great.
It does, but that's because we don't know enough about other people's beliefs. And if we did, we'd be like, wow, that's really different.
It's different.
And if someone feels like they're the same, just ask 5 more questions.
But is it that, I think that's the scary part too. It's to be like, oh, we're so different. How can we be in community together? But there is a way.
I mean, there are all kinds of things that people can come to really beautiful agreement about the nature of God, about community, about justice. But in most of the particulars, well, it really depends which group. But that is one of my favorite things about being a scholar of religion, is looking at the fact that because people have been woven through different stories over the centuries, that we really do disagree about many, many, many things. And learning about the disagreement, I think, is where good conversation and also mutual understanding is built.
Are there still things in what you believe that you have like a hard time?
Yeah.
Actually, like I say I believe this, but this is really hard. I feel like I have that. And there's some things that I'm just like, God, I don't understand why you want it this way. It doesn't make that much sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to trust you. But I still don't understand. I don't know if I agree with that God, which is also like
totally
so ridiculous. I don't think any of us have it fully figured out.
No.
And part of that gives me a little peace. Also lots of anxiety because I'm like, well, which one's the best?
Wait. Yeah, exactly. Show me the right answer.
Yeah. But if nobody knows.
I teach at a divinity school. And so we've got a faculty of maybe 50 different people and who have 50 different sets of beliefs. But we're pretty close. But the differences actually do bring me a lot of comfort. It's because we don't make tests for each other. I've never been in a faculty meeting where people like started picking on the particulars of other people's differences. There's just 50 unbelievably smart people. And if I really wanted to know more about that thing, I can go knock on their door. And that is my version of like the kingdom of heaven.
I was about to say,
pretty smart people who are quite kind
and acknowledge what other people believe to be true. And that doesn't mean that it discounts what they believe.
Yeah. And they show up with food when I'm sad.
So that's where we need to go if you get cancer.
That's right. It's Durham. Come on down.
I do want to ask you about, maybe not death.
Do it.
But about when you you are told that death is upon you. I mean, we all know it is, but like,
but then we forget.
Yeah, we forget. But then to be like really told, like, no, you have an incurable cancer. I think of this song by Tim McGraw, like the "Live Like You Were Dying" song.
Yeah.
I think there's that, and then there's also, I think there can be a lot of other ways to handle that type of news, and I don't think it's always like making bucket lists and checking them off.
Yeah.
But what was your instinctual reaction
Yeah.
to that type of news? And like, did you go into action?
Yeah.
Did you grieve? Or were you making the bucket list?
Totally. It's so funny you brought up the Tim McGraw live like you were dying. Because I'm like, you know what happens when you're dying? Paperwork. You know what happens when you're dying? It's
like, when did he just not do the paperwork?
I know.
And go ride that bull?
There's so many logistics to being miserable. Yeah. It's I guess it really was all of the above. I mean, the most vivid memories I have of that are right when I would wake up, I would forget that I was dying and I'd have to remember all over again. And I genuinely couldn't believe it was me.
Mm.
It felt like it had to be a mistake because you're only in your own body. Like, and you can't believe that your body is somehow like not being controlled by your like will and your heart and your love. You're like, I can't be dying. I have stuff to do and these people need me. So that kind of grief felt like a tidal wave. I mean, I had to make a lot of rules, honestly, to manage the grief.
Mm-hmm.
No sad songs, no Taylor Swift after 7 p.m. Like, don't answer the question, how are you? Just like, you'll tell them by accident and then the day's over.
That is me all the time with just my brain and mental health. I'm like, please don't ask me how I am.
I'll tell you.
I will tell you.
And then my day will be worse.
And then your day will also.
And both our days will be
not
bad.
Be good. But you're like,
yeah.
Do I need to call someone?
Exactly. Yeah. So the grief was sometimes overwhelming. And I do still sometimes, to be honest, feel confused about really like if I'm okay or if other people are okay. Because I just have so many people in my life who are sick. And because of the nature of my work, a lot of people reach out. And so sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, is the whole world dying? Is a thought that I have more often than I would like.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you this one because I find this really annoying about cancer when people are like, it's like the fight of cancer.
Yeah.
It's like when people get on the other side of cancer, like you fought so hard. So does it mean the person that died didn't fight?
Yeah.
Why do we say things like this?
Why do we win and lose?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, cancer sucks. And like, let's put it on cancer, but not on the people of how hard they fought.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And that's I think the biggest feeling of being the one that's sick is you do go from that language of feeling like you're losing the fight to, I mean, I don't think I had a stronger feeling than that I was a loser. Because something awful is happening, not just to me, something awful is happening to everybody in my life. My illness is extremely expensive. I'm ruining all the children's birthday parties. I officially a nightmare with small talk. I mean, like, I'm the round robin of terrible. So it was just, I mean, yeah, I felt absurd, So every time someone's going through something awful, whether it's something people recognize as sad, like cancer or not, I'm always like, oh, hon, I know the feeling of like, I'm the bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lie, but it's a big feeling
to get over or ever just be okay with. Yeah. You require a lot more. You require help. Was that hard to be able to receive?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm very helpful. I would like to help you, Hannah.
Yes.
I would like to be helpful. I would not like to be helped. I'd like to prove to you that I am competent and have it together. Please don't know more than that.
Yes.
Please don't see my house.
So please also don't ask me anything right now because I'm not going to help you, right? Like,
yeah, I was really good at looking invulnerable and cheerful. I wanted to be like the best sad person ever. Yeah.
So is that why you wrote, do you feel like you wrote the books to be able to tell the real truth?
I was lying. I mean, honestly, I lied to everybody in my life consistently because I wanted to be lovable again. Wanted to be not the sad, horrible thing.
Or make it better. Do everything you could in your,
you
can't change the cancer, but you can change how you are bearable with it.
Yeah. When my family, when everyone in my life read my books, they were like, oh. And I was like, well, I've really pulled that off. Yeah.
You wrote I guess 2 books through a really hard part of your life. I feel like when I wrote my book, not as helpful, but I think I was processing for the first time when I wrote my book. And I think there's a lot of vulnerability in that, but then it's like looking back, it's not that I'm grateful, but that's where I processed.
Yeah.
For the world, for anybody to have, I guess. And there's an honesty in that I think is really great and why people connect to stories. But for you, was there ever a time that you were like, oh, did you write the book, I guess, feeling clear about how you felt? And I think that I wasn't fully clear. I was processing. Do you feel like you were processing the book? And now that you look back, you're like, obviously, there's a lot of good that came from it, helped a lot of people, but felt like, oh, maybe, not that I should have kept to myself, but like, this was a grand way to process. That's how I feel. Yeah. I'm like, that was a grand way to process. Write a book for everyone instead of maybe just my journal.
It's so funny. I'm so sorry that happened. I was especially like that because with the first memoir, I really didn't think, I thought I was not going to live that long. And so I did say some things like, there was this guy I had this crush on in like, I don't know, the dawn of time. And I had this really obsessive paragraph about how all my journals were like a record of where he was so that my diaries could exonerate him or convict him of a crime. And, and then I saw him later. And I was like, oh, hey, Colin. So I was about that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I think you probably know
it was like, I just wrote my little love letter and mailed it. And so there were some moments like that. Yeah, it's it's not walking the plank is sometimes probably as weird as walking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that it's like, now you've said it, you've done it. Then you realize, oh, that's kind of scary. But I think being able to put out something so honest in a way that I hope allows other people to feel like they can be like, especially with your book, and like, if you ask me, I'm okay, please read this book. Like, to be able to give somebody who maybe can't find the words for how they feel in that moment, to be the person that I guess had the courage in the fear of it all to say how it actually feels in this moment. And maybe it changes. Maybe I get grateful and maybe I'll feel this way, but right now that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I think there's something really powerful about putting that into the world and then other people being able to like have that.
Yeah.
I think that's what you've done, and like what I've found from I Love Your Devotion, Good Enough, because I haven't run a lot of devotions and they make me feel like I should feel a certain way that I don't feel. But to be able to read something that feels like I feel right now, but there's still this glimmer of hope, because I think the hope's important, feels really nice because it's not asking too much of me. It's not asking too much of me in the time that really sucks. And I think that's really special, what you have done and continue to do in your work, and why I'm like so grateful to be able to have this conversation with you, because you've done great things, but you still don't skip over the parts that people like to skip over on their Instagram feed. And that's really cool.
It's because apparently I am no longer incapable.
Same. I'm having the friction of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just go thinking just real life. And I think a lot of people feel like this. It's like, if you're not doing well, that means you should go away during that time and then come back when you're good. But to be able to give the space and the freedom for people and the community for people to say, I'm not good, but I'm still here. And this is how I am.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. And there should be more of that.
I really do think you're doing a great job with that. You really are.
I am trying.
I think the
but
word
I'm looking
is
at you.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
And you have it, dear. You really do.
It's so hard.
It's the worst.
It's
Yeah,
the worst.
It's much less marketable.
Last thing. If there's no cure for being human, which shit. Do you have like any remedies or some hope for us that you can give us? Just anything.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Totally. Yeah. I promise. It's all wrapped up. 6-step plan.
Yeah.
The things I do believe in more than ever. I think I believe in courage. I think life just takes more courage than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And when I don't have it, then we just borrow it from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in courage. I believe in hope. I think that beautiful things are in front of us, and it is a story that God's telling us and other people who love us. And so I'm really obsessed with hope. And I mostly just really believe in, I always say like interdependence, but it's just people. Like I believe that we're going to end up being carried by other people. It's just going to be really inconvenient and it won't be on our schedule. And most of those people are not going to be the shiny people that we would have imagined if we could line them all up and select them for their duties. But we will be rescued by others. So I do think it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Might not be great.
Maybe even better.
And maybe better tomorrow. Maybe better tomorrow. Thank you so
you're
much.
The best.
You're the best.
Great.
This is awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening to the episode. Better Tomorrow is produced by me, Hannah Brown, and Legos Creative. Our producer is Andrew Stallmer. Our show is recorded, engineered, and edited by the Legos Creative team. Remember to follow Better Tomorrow wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. And don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps and shows your support. You can follow me on socials at Hannah Brown, and you can stay updated on all things Better Tomorrow on our Instagram at Better Tomorrow and our TikTok Better Tomorrow podcast.